Okay, I just want to tell you a little short story that many years ago I was working as a production assistant for an advertising company. And one of my jobs was to look after the packets, the packs as they called them. And I was sent to a basement studio in Wardour Street where they were shooting a commercial for hairspray. And the idea of the commercial was that the hairspray lasted from morning till night. And in my sort of naivety, I thought, well, gosh, they're going to need the camera to go around the back, and then they're going to see the whole of an exterior location, then an interior location. So how are they going to do that? And when I got there was just a typist chair in front of a screen and a load of lights, which were all on dimmers. And what happened was, instead of the camera moving at all, the artist was just slowly spun, and the lights would change from a day scene with a little wind blowing into a night scene. And that's how it's done, very simply. And I thought, who thought that up? Who's the DP on this show? So I looked at the clapperboard, and the name was Billy Williams. And since then, a lot of scotch has gone under the bridge. And well, since then, Billy's earned an Oscar for his work on Gandhi, and nominations for this film are Women in Love and On Golden Pond. Was BAFTA nominated for Women in Love, Sunday Bloody Sunday, The Magus, and won the BSC's Best Cinematography Award for Eagle's Win and Gandhi. On top of that, in 2000, he was awarded the International Award from the American Society of Cinematographers, which is reserved for a cinematographer of international repute who has made an extraordinary contributions to the art form, and a lifetime achievement from the Camera Image in Poland. If that wasn't enough, Her Majesty the Queen made Billy an Officer of the Order of the British Empire in 2009. Please give a warm welcome to the redoubtable Billy Williams. Thank you. Somebody needs this microphone for the audience. Mine's gone limp, excuse me. Well, that was a very striking visual film, I thought. Considering it came from a novel, it wasn't centered around dialogue. It was a very visual, the emotions were all very visually told. I thought it was really quite stunning for its time as well. And also a great advertisement, if you like, for British filmmakers. I mean, the operating, the focus pulling was absolutely fantastic. How did you first meet Ken Russell?
Well, I spent several years in commercials, having started in documentaries. And in those days, it was very difficult to move from documentary into features. And commercials were, in fact, a stepping stone, because it brought together talent from features, the theatre, television, directors, designers, and so on. And I shot half a dozen commercials with Ken about 3 or 4 years before I shot $1 Billion Brain with him.
Which was your first film with Ken, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was my first film. It was my first major picture. I'd done 2 or 3 low-budget pictures. And Otto Heller was due to shoot $1 Billion Brain for Harry Saltzman, having done the previous 2 Harry Palmer films. And he went on a recce to Finland. And when he came back, the production manager said, well, I think Otto ought to have a medical because he's getting on a bit. And he refused to have the medical. And so Harry Saltzman said to Ken, well, who do you want? And Ken asked for me. And all I'd shot with him was a few commercials all those years before. So that was $1 Billion Brain, which was the year before Women in Love. Right. So we'd shot in the snow in Finland. And then when I got the script for Women in Love, I thought, gosh, this is a gift, because it had got so much going for it for a cinematographer with so many different times of day.
Yes.
You know, dusk and firelight and candlelight and so on. And I said to Ken, why don't we really explore the colour of light and filter it so that it looks like dusk and firelight and candlelight and so on. Because in those days, the inclination was to neutralize the skin tones. And I thought, well, let's, be bold with this. And so I, used different filters to create different times of day, like enhancing the firelight,
yes,
firelight with a full orange on the lamps, and, electricians waving branches in front of the lamps to give a flickering effect.
Yes.
And so Ken, was fully agreed with that. And the great thing about working with Ken was he had such a wonderful eye. And he was unpredictable, exhilarating to work with, unconventional, no holds barred, anything. He didn't do things by half, as you can see. And of course, for its day, it was regarded as very risque.
Yes. Apart from the subject matter, of course.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, and the treatment, of course,
yeah,
the full nudity. And the result was that the rank circuit, which should have released the picture, refused to show it. And so it went out on the ABC circuit, I think it was called. And, there was a certain amount of criticism of the nudity and so on. And there were some territories, I think in South America, where they cut from, before they start wrestling, when Oliver Reed says to Alan, well, let's strip off and do it properly. And they cut all of the wrestling, and the next cut was when they're lying on the log, and Alan says, well, was it too much for you?
Yes. The film takes on a completely different aspect. Yes.
That, well, the wrestling scene was quite a challenge because, the full nudity had never been done before in a mainstream picture. And when it came to the day, and the actors stripped off, and Ollie took one look at Alan and he said, he's got a bigger dong now. He was absolutely mortified. He went off to the corner to see if he could improve matters a bit. And he came back and we had 2 handheld cameras on the first day when they were fully nude. There were David Harcourt and Mervyn Wilson, hand-holding 2 Arri 2Cs, wild. And one was on about a 25 and the other one about a 50. So we did handheld, fully nude for the first day. And then the second day, we did tighter shots and the dialogue. And so we finished the scene. Well, sometime after that, we went off to Switzerland. And whilst we were away, the editor put it all together. And Ken watched it and he said, I need some more wrestling. Well, we finished up in our little studio in Merton Park with a few flats and some candles and the rug.
Right.
And so we did the climax of the wrestling at high speed, 3 times the speed, and matched it in. And of course, the scene really needed it because in the earlier passages, they're throwing each other all over the place. They never come into full bodily contact where they're embracing. And of course, that was essential.
And that was the last half of that sequence,
Yes.
Yeah, gosh. This was all on location originally, wasn't it?
Oh, it was on we had some wonderful locations in Derbyshire and Newcastle. And
was it all in one house or did you move around?
The main location was a place called Elverston Castle in Derbyshire. And that's where we did the wrestling, and there was the billiard table there, and the lake, and the scenes with the dogs, and the drowning in the lake. And that was Magic Hour, of course.
Yes.
And
so that must have been tricky to shoot, actually, at Magic Hour.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what it's like.
Yes.
It's not Magic Hour, it's 5 or 10 minutes.
Yes.
And it was a very long scene. And we had all these rowing boats with Chinese lanterns. Well, the film speed, when I started the picture, the film speed was 50 ASA. And after I've been shooting for a few weeks, Kodak's brought out a new stock 100 ASA, so I saved that for the special occasions,
right,
including the magic hour. And so I said to Ken, we've got to shoot this just before it's dark, because I can't light it, it won't look right, and I don't have the gear anyway. And so that was decided. Well, it took 3 evenings, starting at the same time each evening, and Ollie, who was absolutely terrific, had to go in 3 consecutive evenings into the cold lake.
Gosh.
And he never complained. He was absolutely terrific. All the actors, the artists, were just wonderful. They never complained about stripping off and going in the lake and all that.
And I think that wasn't Glenda Jackson was pregnant, I think, at the time.
Well, we'd been shooting for 2 weeks and everything was going fine. And then Glenda came in one day and said, well, actually, I'm pregnant. And the shoot was 18 weeks, so that by the end it was starting to show. And there were 1 or 2 scenes when we were in Switzerland where you can just notice a little bump in the tummy. But
yeah, I must say I wasn't very much aware of it though. Yeah. There's a lot of use of handheld in the film.
Yes.
What is your feeling about that?
Well, I thought it was absolutely right.
Yes.
I mean, we used it when it was right to use it. We didn't just use it for its own sake. We used it in the wrestling. We used it in the first time that Alan Bates and Jenny Linden made love. And also after the chasing of the cattle. You see, getting in amongst the cattle. David was in there with Glenda. That was all handheld. And then when Ollie chases her, and, they wrestled her to the ground, and there's all this distorting angles, which Ken did a little bit of this, twisting the camera and so on, just to kind of add to the emotion of the scene.
Right.
The distortion of how she was taunting him. I mean, she was really a tough cookie and really... And
there was a fantasy, interesting effect between Jenny Linden and Alan Bates.
Yes. Well, we did that on location in Woodland. And it was Ken's idea to put... It was a Mitchell, high-speed Mitchell, who was shooting at 3 times again, at 3 times the speed. So we put the camera on its side and we shot on a long lens. And I built all this up with lots of foreground and everything and put a backlight in, just to kind of give it a very romantic, ethereal feeling. And the way it cuts, of course, it's just, it's delightful.
No, it's very interesting because they're both in that angle, aren't they, at the start?
Yes.
And then we see them sort of side on.
Yeah.
Had no jamming from your Mitchell on its side?
No, we did.
It was quite amazing, yeah. And I noticed when they're having that conversation with the mirror, the use of the mirror there is really clever.
Well, the mirror scene was a stroke of luck. We were on this location at Elverston Castle, and we needed somewhere to shoot the mirror room. It wasn't written as a mirrored scene. We needed a room.
Yes.
And the location manager showed us what was available, and she showed Ken and I this room, which wasn't very big. It was only about 4 meters square. And it had mirrors on 3 sides and a small window on the 4th wall. And we looked at it, and one mirror had a diagonal crack.
Yes.
And we decided to go for it. But it was tough because BNC is pretty big.
Yes.
And there wasn't much space, but it adds tremendously to the scene. I mean, if we'd shot that in an ordinary space, it would not have had anything like the emotional impact. But because it's all about this dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
For Alan, of 2 sides of his personality and the indecision of where's he going.
Yes.
And you get this confusion, don't you, because of the multiple image.
No, it's brilliant.
It was just a stroke of luck. But of course, Ken made full use of it. He knew what to do.
Yes.
And he just full of good ideas.
I love those setups where you've got the same actor twice and one actor in the middle. I just thought it was a stunning scene.
Of course, everything had to be blacked with black velvet, hiding all the lampstands, because I couldn't rig anything.
Yes.
There was everything was just bounced off the ceiling. the lighting was just a bounce light. That's all I could do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it would look terrific, that thing. And but everything, this house, you did everything in the house, in fact. There were no studio work at all, I think.
Well, the only studio work was the interiors in Switzerland, the sort of log cabins. And looking back at this is the extraordinary thing. When you look at something you shot, so many years ago, you can see where you might have done better.
Yes.
And I think some of those scenes I could have done better, with a bit more experience. But one of the problems we had then was that there weren't any good soft lights like we have now. Most people were using hard light.
Yes.
But one or two of us were trying to get into soft light a bit. But because the film was so slow, that was a problem. We didn't have any of the lovely plastic diffusion we've got now. So that to get the soft light, you have bounce off a bit of polystyrene. Well, we didn't have polystyrene. You have to bounce off a bit of whiteboard or a ceiling piece. And there was one soft light called a north light, which is about 1 metre square.
Yes, I remember those. Yeah.
They were so heavy. And
they weighed a ton, yes.
They weren't very adaptable.
But there seemed to be a lot of soft light in the film.
Well, yes, I used it as much as I could.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I think for certain dramatic scenes that hard light can be more effective.
Yes.
Because you get a sharper shadow and you can control the light better.
Yeah.
But you see, looking at what we're being lit by here, this soft light with an egg crate. Well, that's the answer.
Yes.
Because the problem with soft light, as you know, is that if you haven't got an egg crate, it goes everywhere.
It goes everywhere, yeah.
And I was struggling to find a way of using controlled soft light, and I did a picture at Shepperton with Bill Chitty, the gaffer was Bill Chitty, and I said, can you build me a light which, with an egg crate, that will give me a big soft source? And he made this lamp for me. It was about so square, and it had 16 500-watt photolithers in it. So I got 8 kilowatts of soft light with an egg crate.
Right.
And that was the first time I'd been able to control the soft light.
Yeah.
And then it was some time later before it was really developed.
Yes.
But nowadays, of course,
with LED and something.
Soft lights, they've got the egg crate just so that it doesn't go everywhere. You've
got
some control. But I think there are times when hard light can work better.
Yes.
Depending on what the scene's about. It's the atmosphere of the scene, what you're trying to create. Because you can do a lot with hard shadows.
Yes.
But in recent years I've spent a lot of time with film students, and I think some of them are here tonight. And the thing I've noticed is they don't like hard light.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. I think it's because most movies today don't use hard light.
Yes.
Most films are a soft light of some degree, aren't they?
Yes.
Controlled soft light. And of course it looks lovely, and you don't get the secondary shadows.
Yes.
So I've noticed that where I would use a hard light, they start off with a hard light and then diffuse it a little bit, as if it shouldn't be so sharp.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps one of the reasons is that over the years film got finer grain and we got sharper lenses, so that even before digital, sometimes for certain subjects was starting to look a little bit too sharp.
Yes.
And quite often people started using gauzes like Ozzie Morris did for Fiddler on the Roof. He put a lady's stocking, brown stocking, on the lens and left it there for the whole picture.
Yeah.
Of course, that was anamorphic, and it looked wonderful.
Yes. You got an Oscar for that.
Now that we have digital and the Alexa, there are times when it looks too sharp.
Yes.
And so my only experience of using the Alexa is recently at Beaconsfield, doing exercises with the students, and doing a comparison between 35mm
Right.
and the Alexa.
Yes. So what is your thoughts about digital versus film? I mean, dare we ask you that question? But as a doyen of film.
Yeah. Well, you see, yes. I think film's got a texture and a life to it. I think digital, even if it's beautifully shot, sometimes looks a bit flat.
Yes.
I think, especially with skin tones, I think skin tones look better on film.
Yes, no, I would agree.
Yeah, I like that slight grain. Although for years, of course, we tried to get away from grain.
Yes.
We wanted finer grain film.
Yes.
But
now we put it in now.
But now people are saying, "Oh well, let's use film because you can see the grain."
Yes.
Because
interesting.
It's very fine grain now
Yes.
compared to 40, 50 years ago.
But I don't think, I doubt the audience really notices whether the grain's there or not. Maybe the people in this room, but I mean, I always say Mrs. Briggs of Aberystwyth, when she goes to the cinema, does she really notice that? Maybe it gives a texture. It's like an oil painting, I suppose, as opposed to an acrylic painting.
Yeah.
And, I have to say, your women look fantastic in this movie. They really were excellent. And we seem to be losing that now. Do you think that in modern filmmaking, we're losing that technique of making the actors look like stars, if you like, or shine on the screen? Do you think that's what's happening?
It's a difficult question because when I was sort of developing in commercials, I remember a producer saying to me, he said, "You know, Billy, you need to learn how to like the ladies." I obviously didn't. And I studied the work of some of the great Hollywood cinematographers, and Jack Cardiff. I think Jack Cardiff's work, of course, all his films were in colour.
Yes.
It was absolutely wonderful in the way he photographed women. And I think it's so important because, I mean, I've been very lucky. I've worked with some wonderful leading ladies, Elizabeth Taylor, Ava Gardner, Catherine Hepburn, Faye Dunaway and Cher. Most of them have been in their 40s and they want to look much
in
younger.
their 20s.
They want to look 25 again.
Yes.
And so I think that's the challenge. Really.
Yes. It sort of makes you pay attention, I find.
Yeah.
And also because there's a lot of DPs out there, and I'm not naming names, obviously, that I feel like the atmosphere of the scene, and they somehow ignore the actor. And I think the actor is the star. The people go to the cinema, I think, for the actors, not for the scenery. So I think although the scenery gives them a context, I think you need to make them look as good as you can.
Well, you're right, and I always tried to be close to the actors and to look after the actors.
Yes.
Both emotionally on the set to make them feel welcome and part of the crew. And I would go into the makeup department, say, if we had any test days, I'd go into the makeup department with the leading lady and the makeup man and take a little lamp in, a test lamp, and see where the best place was.
Yes.
Because it varies, all their faces vary, and some people look better lit from one side to the other.
Yeah.
I did a picture with Bette Midler, and the thing that was insisted upon by Bette was that whenever she came into close-up, she had to be looking right to left. It didn't matter about the rest of it. Once we got into close-up, she had to look right to left. And they had to build the set to accommodate this. And you could see why.
And stage the scene,
she looked much better on that side. And so these things you find out, and because it's a glamour industry, in that they want to look good, and the public want to make them to look good. But, if you've got a good makeup man and hairdresser and good costumes, like we had wonderful costumes here from Shirley Russell, who was Ken's wife, of course.
No, they were excellent.
And they were just beautiful, wonderful colours and textures.
So now your production designer was quite new, I think.
Well, it was Luciana Righi, and she'd met Ken at the BBC, And this was her first movie. And for some extraordinary reason, when you read the credits, she's only got a set dresser credit. They didn't give her a production designer credit, which was rather sad, I thought.
And rather odd. Was there a reason for that? Was it a union thing or something?
I don't know. I don't know. But I did several pictures with her afterwards, and of course she was marvellous, yes.
And I thought that was all very good. And speaking of actors, you have acted in a film.
Yes.
Albeit briefly, and you get shot in the first 10 minutes. But how did that feel, being in front of the camera instead of behind it?
This was about 1975, I think it was. And I was in Spain, in Madrid, preparing to shoot a film called The Wind and the Lion with Sean Connery and Candice Bergen. And the director was John Milius, who was the writer of Apocalypse Now, and this was his second movie. His first movie was called Dillinger, and he was very keen on guns and swords, and his movies are very macho. He was casting in Madrid, and I went into the office, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, right," he said, "you can play Sir Joseph." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, you can play Sir Joseph." Sir Joseph was the British Vice Consul in Tangier in 1904. So he insists that I play the role, and eventually my day comes one day in Almeria, and I'm all dressed up in a white suit with a starched collar and tie, Eton tie, gold watch and chain, and a Browning in the shoulder, automatic. And I've got this scene with Candice Bergen. And the action is that Sean Connery's band of brigands burst through the trellis at the end of this beautiful garden in the European quarter. And I have to grab the gun, move to the mark, and fire when the first horseman is halfway across the duck pond. Well, that was the script, you see, and that was the action. So when this day comes, I said to John, "John, do you think maybe I could rehearse my lines before we..." "Oh, don't worry about the lines," he said. "Let's go off and do some shooting." So we go off the set, and I'm given very detailed instructions about to draw the gun, take aim, and fire. And he said, No, he said, "with real bullets," he said, "you get a bigger recoil. You've got to take a bigger recoil." And all this stuff was so important to him. Well, when it came to the shot, we've got 5 cameras on it. David's on me on a waist shot. So I'm thinking, well, I've got to get out quite quickly, but I don't go out too fast or I'll pop out the top of frames. George, my gaffer, had got an idiot board up with brigands written on it. So I have to shout brigands as I get up, then I have to move to the mark, take aim and fire. So off we go. Can't rehearse it in. And we shoot, and everything goes fine. I get up, move to the mark, take aim. The first horseman does a terrific stunt. Great, but I haven't fired the gun. I've forgotten to fire the gun, the most important thing. Because we covered it.
Yeah. Is that because you were worried about your lines or something?
Well, you don't realise how much there is to remember.
Yes.
Especially when there are props involved.
Yes.
And movement and hitting marks. And when you're behind the camera, you expect the actors to get it right. And
yes.
If you want them to move a little bit here or there, you expect them to do it, and they usually do.
Yeah.
But,
no, I have great respect for actors for that reason.
Yeah.
Have you a preference for widescreen, or this is just 185? And
well, I learned just before we started, and Ken told me he was very disappointed that we couldn't shoot anamorphic because $1 Billion Brain had been anamorphic.
Yes.
And he wanted this to be anamorphic. But there wasn't the money.
Right, it's a cost.
Remember, the lenses were expensive. You had to have Panavision equipment. Yeah. And it would have added $50,000.
Right.
And we didn't have it.
Yeah.
So we shot 175 because it's funny, there were different systems in the late 60s. In France, they were shooting 166. US was 185, and for some reason we were somewhere in the middle for a while.
Yes.
175. So we shot it 175, but of course it's fine on 185.
Yes. Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing about Panavision, I think, in those days was, I don't think anyone's here from Panavision, forgive me if you are, Charlie Todman's at the back there somewhere, is that I think that they wouldn't change their book price.
No.
They went with the prices they were charging in Hollywood, and almost every film was shot on Panavision in Hollywood, and it was a disappointment because most of us always wanted to have a go at it, or use the cameras and stuff. And, Now, your father was a cameraman.
And my father was a cinematographer who started in 1910 at a studio in Walthamstow, and the walls were made of glass.
That's right,
yes. There's a still picture of this studio in Wood Street, and there were two brothers called Gobbett. My father went there as an apprentice in 1910, and he worked there until 1916, and in those days, a cinematographer did everything. You loaded the camera, hand cranked the scene, developed a negative, printed it, and showed it in the local cinema. So you had all these different skills,
yes,
and abilities.
And did he involve you? Your dad involve you in any of that?
Well, that was before my time, of course. But when I left school.
Sorry, yes, not in 1910.
No. But then he went on to film the surrender of the German fleet.
That's right, at Scapa Flow, yes.
After the end of the First World War. And did a lot of expedition work. So I kind of grew up surrounded by camera equipment and filmmaking, and my father going off for months at a time.
Yes.
And school leaving age was 14. So when I was 14, my mother had a brother-in-law who worked in the city, who offered me a job as an office boy. But my father said, well, why don't you come and work with me? And so I went with my father. And
then you ended up at British Transport Films.
Well, after I did 4 years with my father, and then 2 years as a photographer in the RAF. And when I came out, I thought, I like to spread my wings a bit. Looked for a job. I got a job for a newly formed documentary company called British Transport Films. And the Labour government had nationalised all the transport, the railways, the docks, the inland waterways, road transport. And so they formed this unit, and it made films, it made documentaries, which were the sort of most interesting ones. We made travelogues for encouraging people to go by train, and we made basic instruction films. But I was an assistant there with David Watkin and Robert Painter.
Yes.
So we were all three together. And
so how did you get into commercials from that? Was that just a...
Well, Jim Garrett was one of the production assistants at British Transport Films. And a few years later, when commercial television started, Jim Garrett was the managing director of a company called Television Advertising, who had 2 stages in the basement of 142 Water Street,
right.
House.
Yeah.
And he said to me one day,
where I first met you, saw you, where I first saw you in that 142.
And he said to me one day, he said, we need an operator. Will you come in for a day? And I said, well, I'm not really an operator. I said, I want to do lighting, because I'd come from documentaries where you operate and light after a fashion. And he said, well, just come along and it'll be good fun. So I went and operated with the handles for a few weeks, and then persuaded them to give me a chance to light. And of course, looking back, some of it was pretty dire. But it's a learning curve, isn't it? There's so much to learn about lighting.
But what was quite interesting about commercial, if I may interrupt you there, is that they were very short-spaced, weren't they? So, you had sometimes just one day.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work, you'd say, well, tomorrow I'll do it differently. And you sort of improve yourself as you go along.
It was a great learning curve for all of us. But also, it was a new form of filmmaking, because you didn't
Indeed.
have 2 hours
Yeah.
on a feature film or 20-minute documentary. You got 30 seconds
Yes.
to tell
Yes.
the story.
Yeah.
So a shorthand developed, and cutting became much faster. You had to make an impact with the shot.
Yes.
And although it was good experience in a way, it's very different from feature filmmaking, as
Right.
you know, because with feature filmmaking, you've got to develop the story and match your lighting throughout a 3 or 4 minute sequence, whereas in commercials they're usually disjointed shots that don't
Yeah.
have to match.
Exactly.
So that there's a lot more discipline, I think, with features. And the other thing with commercials was that there was an awful amount of time wasted with indecision and
Yes.
preparation.
Yes.
And agency people wanting variation, so that it was a good learning curve.
Yeah.
But I was more than happy when I got my feature.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Maybe the audience have a few questions. We have some microphones, so if you want to ask a question, we get you a microphone so that we can hear what you're saying. Anybody like to ask Billy something? Sorry, if you all nodded off. Oh, there's a gentleman there, yes.
It was interesting when you...
Hang on, let's get the microphone to you, Governor. Is that Jamie?
Jamie, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Jamie Harcourt. Bill, it was interesting when you said that it was originally going to be filmed anamorphic.
Yeah, I can't hear what you're saying, Jamie.
Okay.
Try that, yeah.
Okay, this is a bit closer. Is that better? Okay, it was interesting, Billy, when you said that the film was originally going to be made anamorphic, but the budget wouldn't allow it. Do you think it would have made a difference to all the handheld stuff if you'd had the much bigger anamorphic lenses? Would you have got the same results, do you think?
I think the handheld stuff would have been more difficult because the lenses were heavier. But I think that David is Jamie's father.
Yes, I know, yeah.
He would have coped with it because $1 Billion Brain was anamorphic, and Ken had David working with a lot of handheld in that picture, and David coped with it very well. Of course, we would have had less depth of field
Yes.
because the focal lengths are doubled.
So it may have changed somewhat the staging.
Yeah.
Oh, that, yeah.
It would have been nice to have the bigger negative to get the additional picture quality.
Right,
I think.
yeah. Yeah. Now, I find with handheld and anamorphic, you can create a role which can sometimes be unattractive for an audience, particularly if the screen's big. But everyone's looking at their phones now, aren't they, watching movies? So, you know. Another question. Yes, sir. Hang on, it's coming to you. It's Roger.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Rog.
Hi, Phil. Hi, Phil. Hi, Bill. That was really wonderful to see your work. And I just wanted to ask, when you did the restoration, you mentioned earlier, that was actually what I was interested in, you said, oh, well, there are some things I might have done differently looking back at them in terms of the Swiss scenes, interiors. Did you have the chance to revisit any scenes now that you've got so much more technology in the restoration process than you would have had at the time in post-production? Did you actually tweak anything that you...
Yeah, well, it's a good question because in the late 90s, the BBC decided to do away with the telecine system because digital was coming in. And the technical manager of the BBC rang me up and said, I've been told to dispose of all the 35mm prints we've got. And I've got a print of Women in Love. Would you like to have it? So I went up to White City and came back with 7 double reels of the print of Women in Love. Well, it was a Technicolor dye transfer print.
Gosh.
And the beauty of that system was that the colours didn't fade. We shot the picture on Eastern Colour Negative. It went to Technicolor, who made the separations, and it was a dye transfer, matrices, I think they're called. And so it was a dye transfer process, which meant when Ken and I first saw it, we thought, well, the colours are good, but it's not quite as sharp as the Eastman colour contact print. But what I found out with this print was that it hadn't faded.
Yes.
And whereas shortly after that, this would be about 1970s, the system was scrapped. Well,
yes.
It wasn't scrapped, they sold it to the Chinese.
Sold it to the Chinese, yes.
And they went back to Eastman colour contact print. And the Eastman colour prints of that time had faded. And I discovered this when I showed other pictures.
Yeah.
In
no, it is an issue with Eastman
and
colour.
it all goes magenta.
Yeah.
So I kept this print until last year. I showed it at various film festivals at Pinewood and the National Film School and Camera Image and so on. And it was a lovely print. And last year, I thought, I don't know, these transit cases seem to get heavier each year. Yes. And I was keeping it in a place in the garden, which was dry and so on. But I thought, well, really, this print ought to be preserved. I wonder if the BFI would like to have it. So I contacted them, and they said yes. And Ken Russell just died. They said, yes, we haven't got a print. So they picked it up.
Oh, great.
And I got a very nice letter saying, you know, what condition it was in. They were going to put it in the permanent archive. A few months later, I get another letter from the head of the archive department saying, we would like to digitize this, and this is the process. Would you like to be involved? And what happened was, they went back to the original negative at MGM in Hollywood, and with a Northlight laser scanner, they scanned it frame by frame to 4K and 16-bit, whatever that means.
Yes.
And they sent the files to Deluxe in Mead Street in Soho, and so I went up to Soho and graded it. Well, you know, you went through the process.
Well, Long Good Friday was done there, yeah.
You? And that was wonderful. But in answer to your question, I really didn't change anything because I thought I was happy with the print. There were one or two scenes that I warmed up a little, like the fantasy scene with the camera on its side. It was a bit cold in the original print, so I just warmed it up. And of course, with a print, when you go from one reel to another, you sometimes get a light change. So we were able to smooth that out. And of course, there was a certain amount of dirt and so on. But the team at the BFI, Kieran Webb and Ben Thompson, who did the spade work, tidying it up, they did a wonderful job.
Yes. It looks terrific, I think, this, yes.
Yeah.
Another question? Sir, Richard Blanchard, in fact.
Billy, I just wanted to ask you about the use of zooms in the film, because it was probably quite early days of sophisticated zooms, was it, at that time? Had they been around?
That's a good question.
And how did you kind of design it, or was it sort of, did you wing it, basically?
Zooms were quite popular in commercials at that time, but you couldn't put a zoom on the BNC because it didn't have a mirror shutter. Well, just before we started, a few months before we started, Angelo brought out a new 10:1 zoom with a side finder, so with a prism, so you were actually looking through the lens. And so we had that 10:1. The other lenses were Cook Speed Pancos, and Ken fell in love with this lens, and I think maybe we overused it a bit. But on the other hand...
Well, it sort of fitted in, I think. I mean, after a while you got used to it.
The best shot, really, of the use of the zoom is when Oliver Reed dies in the snow.
Yes.
Because we were right up high on the 250.
Yeah.
And we pick him up walking and sitting down and taking his cap off.
Yeah, a great scene.
And then you zoom back and see how isolated. And that's a wonderful.
But there are a number of moments. The dead bodies in the lake after you've seen the other two making love, and you pull out one from that. I mean, I think that was terrific.
Yeah. The only thing with it was that it wasn't so sharp.
Yeah.
and you needed to get to 8 really for it to start to come in, and it still wasn't as sharp as the primes, whereas zooms today are very close.
Yes, excellent. Yeah. So those of you who don't know, the camera that Billy was using for this film was the BNC Mitchell, which is about this big, and it was never made with a reflex finder. So the operator, that's why I think the operating is fantastic, is the operator is not actually seeing the real image, he's seeing through a side finder, and he has to practice it to make sure that he's pointing in the right direction at the right moment. So from that point of view, I mean, the operating in this film is fantastic, I think, from that point of view. The whip pans and just faultless, absolutely faultless.
Yes. Well, David worked with me, and Jamie reminded me this evening we did 18 movies together.
Yes.
I mean, he was my right-hand man.
He was a doyen of operators,
Yes,
wasn't he?
He was wonderful. I had a wonderful gaffer, George Cole, too. He was with me for a long time, and it's good to keep the same crew, but of course, when I started working in America, I couldn't take them. We could take them to Canada, but not to the United States.
No, we all suffered that one, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Any more questions? No? Okay. Well, we're having a little reception afterwards, but in the meantime, let's thank Billy Williams, OBE BSC, for his wonderful words this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Pleasure. You did all my job for me.